Well, let's go to the very talented and intelligent Adam Creighton. We need a dose of common sense. Adam, just a comment from you.
Hello.
40 ships, 90,000 containers off the Australian coast waiting to come into port. Is this a metaphor of government incompetence? Why don't they roll up their sleeves and get tough?
Well, look, it's certainly a metaphor of union incompetence. I mean, the politics of the wage demand is just extraordinary. I mean, the prices have actually gone down over the past 12 months. So if you just keep your nominal salary, you're actually going ahead. So the idea that 2.5% even every year, let alone 6%, is fair and reasonable, I would say is excessive right now. I mean, the national income of the country has just fallen 7.6%, for instance. So it's just extraordinary that one particular union, mind you, one of the most important, because the cost base at the ports, as you said earlier, is basically baked into the competitive advantage or not of the whole country. So in terms of the government, I think they have to watch it very, very carefully because, there's all this talk of a manufacturing revival, export revival. Well, that certainly won't be happening with wage rises like that at the ports.
Well, the worst feature of it is the government is seen as incompetent and weak and not prepared for a fight. You've got to get into the ring on all of this. I mean, OK, we're not being over-emotional or sentimental here, but I'm told today that some medicines for oncology, arthritis, cardiovascular disease, diabetes could all be at risk, to say nothing of the poor farmer who, for God's sake, has been through everything. And these people on 172,000 a year and wanting more, come on. Eh?
Well, look, maybe they're feeling jealous of the mid-level public servants in Canberra who are working from home on roughly the same amount of money, so they just want to keep up with them maybe. But just a broader point on the ACTU here, which obviously represents the Maritime Union. I mean, the union movement is actually supporting all of the restrictions which have destroyed the incomes of millions of Australians. And yet, at the same time, they want very large pay rises at the wharves. It's just extraordinary.
I mean, the Labor Party's silent. I mean, Tony Burke, who's the Shadow Minister, he's on holidays. Just for the benefit of our viewers, my understanding is that the value of disrupted goods is approximately $165 million a day in imports, and in exports, $66.9 million. And all the government seems to want to do is to say, oh, we'll intervene to support Patrick's application to the Fair Work Commission. Is that enough, Adam?
Well, look, let's probably wait and see what the Fair Work Commission says. I understand that they're going to hear the case in the next few days, so we'll have more information then. But I think ultimately the government does need to step in. It certainly has a much better political platform to do so now than the Howard government did in 1998, for instance. So if it does nothing, and if the situation escalates, then it's a very poor reflection on the Morrison government.
One has to be fair to the union. Paddy Crumlin has said this morning that he asked Patrick management to identify any containers carrying medical supplies, either on the dock or on berthed vessels, so they could be prioritised, and supervisors couldn't identify a single medical container in need of transport. So, I mean, the National Farmers Federation just say this is over the odds entirely. They've got pork and grain and sheep and all the rest of it, and some of these vessels have been delayed up to 18 days. And, Adam, the surcharges pile up, don't they?
Yeah, look, they certainly do. Like I said, the costs at the ports are basically baked into the whole country, so it's particularly important. It's not like, the awards that we're paying people that work in the supermarkets or McDonald's. The wages matter much more at the ports than they do elsewhere.
Absolutely.
So the government does need to monitor it.
Adam, a budget next week. We're in the worst recession in nearly 100 years. I think our viewers need to understand this. I'm sorry to say this, but it's the truth. A recession ordered by the government. The government ordered businesses to close. It ordered people by the hundreds of thousands to lose their jobs. As a result, we've got economic and financial destruction, desperate personal consequences. There are other ways of doing it. However, Adam, we've been kept alive by China. I mean, the demand for iron ore is kept afloat. We might be missing out on the Chinese tourists and the Chinese students and the Chinese investors and so on. And then Victoria with a quarter of the national economy forcing the lockdown. What are they going to do in this budget? More and more spending?
Well, look, firstly, just on China, you're right. The price of iron ore is roughly double what they forecast in the budget. So we really have been very lucky there. But that's not going to last forever. It's largely due to problems in Brazil, supply from Brazil. But just more broadly on the budget, well, look, I think there's going to be a huge amount of spending. The deficit this year is going to be the biggest since 1944. It'll be roughly $230 billion. And the most remarkable thing about all this, I think, is that everyone talks as if it was all completely necessary. Yeah. The elephant in the room, I think, is that this was just a complete overreaction and we've spent far too much money than we needed to. But you certainly won't hear the Prime Minister saying that.
No, that is a brilliant analysis. You see, what does it mean when they say, we're going to boost business and consumer confidence and promote jobs and growth? What does that mean? I mean, we get all this jargon, don't we?
Well, look, the medium-term goal, so to speak, of the government used to be to bring about a surplus, but now the goal is what you just said. It's that rather vague to build confidence. But in my view, they're not going to build confidence just by piling up more and more debt. What they really need to do to build confidence is to be honest with people and to tell them that the virus is nowhere near as dangerous as they first thought, and that people should go and act normally again, because if they don't, it's going to affect investment for years. I mean, if you're a business, if you think it's going to shut down every 6 months, you'd never invest.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're coaching a football team and you're behind at half-time, you want an attitudinal change above all else. The attitudinal change this nation needs, and it's got to come from our political leaders, is to dismantle the fear, dismantle the alarmism, make people feel they want to roll up their sleeves, get out there and get into it, and there is a future if you're prepared to work. But every other day, we get more of this hysteria.
No, look, that's exactly right. And just in terms of practical things for the budget, they really should bring forward the 2024 tax cuts. It's really quite embarrassing if all they manage in this sense of crisis is to bring forward a small set of tax cuts by 12 months. I mean, that's just pathetic, really, I mean, to be completely honest. So they need to do that, and they really need to fix up the award system, which is far too complicated. It certainly deters job creation.
But what about the contradiction? Finally, before we go, Adam, the contradiction. So we provide all these bonuses and schemes to help people because we've got to actually get money out of the economy, but then we lock them at home. Stop it.
It's extraordinary.
Well, they can't spend the... cut it out.
It's just extraordinary. You know, they keep saying that there's a problem with demand and that we need to bolster stimulus, but, you know, the whole problem is the restrictions. You know, to be quite honest, we don't even know if there is a problem with demand. Maybe there's not if they lifted all the restrictions. So it's certainly a lot cheaper to lift the restrictions rather than to borrow, you know, another $400 billion.
Absolutely. And get rid of the green tail. It's boring, Adam. Final comment from me. Get the housing industry going. Those people who want to put shovels in the ground, let them put shovels in the ground, and the multipliers are enormous. Thank you for what you do. Read Adam Creighton in The Australian. He makes sense every other day. Good to talk to you. Catch up soon. There he is, Adam Creighton.